Wow. Didn't expect that. My goodness. Larry. Now, if you don't follow me on Twitter and Instagram after all of that, it's on you. Thank you so much for having me. Candace has invited me to several of these events. I really do appreciate it. Let me give you the quick Cliff Notes version of how I got into talk radio. I was living in Cleveland. I'm from LA, but I was living in Cleveland. And I wrote an op-ed piece for the newspaper. This is about 30 years ago. And I argued that racism was no longer a significant enough problem to hold anybody back if they're willing to work hard.
That's right.
I get a phone call from a producer of a radio show. He said, "Are you black?" I said, "I think so." He said, "Will you on my guy's show and talk about this? You really believe that racism is not a big problem anymore?" I said, "I didn't say it didn't exist. I said it no longer can hold you back if you're willing to work hard, you stay focused, and don't make bad mistakes." So I'm on this guy's show for an hour. Now Cleveland is about 50% black, so virtually all the callers were black. I was called in an hour, and Uncle Tom, a bootlicking Uncle Tom, a foot-shuffling bootlicking Uncle Tom, a bug-eyed foot-shuffling bootlicking Uncle Tom, an Oreo, as in brown on the outside, white on the inside, coconut, the same concept, the Antichrist, and then I was called that word that you call a black person when you really, really want to hurt him. I was called Republican. A man can only take so much. But you know what I wasn't called? I wasn't called wrong. I said the number one problem in this country in general, and the black community in particular, is the fact that 70% of black kids are now born into this world without a father in the home. 70%. And forget about Larry Elder. Obama once said, a kid raised without a father is 5 times more likely to be poor, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, 20 times more likely to end up in jail. It is far and away the number one problem facing this country. Now, what's happened? People like Walter Williams, the extraordinary economist, says in 1940, only 12% of black kids were born outside of wedlock. There's some census data that suggests 1900, 1890, a black child was slightly more likely to be born to mother and father married than a white kid. Then comes the war on poverty. 1965, Lyndon Johnson argued that black people need to have assistance. Sent out a bunch of social workers literally knocking on doors, apprising women of the availability of money, providing there was no man in the house. We've gone from 25% black kids born outside of wedlock in 1965 to 70% now. What the welfare state has done is incentivized women to marry the government and allowed men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. And that's not racism. We need to do something about that. Was I wrong when I talked about the importance of choice in school? I went to a school called Crenshaw High. You guys know that school. If you saw the movie Boys in the Hood, that was my school. Front page article, LA Times a few years ago, 3% of kids at my former high school can do math at grade level. Wow. Not a typo, 3%. And that's up from 2% the year before. Now, what parent is going to send her kid to a school where only 3% of the kids can do math at grade level if that parent has an option out? And by the way, the school is a Crip school. The reason I know that is because Ice-T went there 10 years after I did and told me he chose it because he wanted to go to a Crip school. So now you're living in that geographical area and you're assigned to a school where only 3% of the kids can do math at grade level, and the school is a Crip school. And you were forced to go there. One party, however, wants to give you options. One party believes in choice. And there's a program called the DC Hope Scholarship Program. Google it, check it out. The test scores have improved. More importantly, the dropout rate has significantly improved. And parental satisfaction is up. Less violence in the school. And what it does is give the parents an $8,000, $9,000 scholarship that the parent can use to go wherever that kid can get in. So the program is cheaper than the amount of money they're spending on public schools. Parents like it. And guess who wants to shut it down? You know, in 1997, Time Magazine and CNN polled black teenagers and white teenagers. And they asked them whether racism was a major problem in America. It's 23 years ago. Not too surprisingly, both said yes. More black kids said yes than white kids. But both of them, majority of them said yes. But then black kids were asked this question. Is racism a big problem, a small problem, or no problem in your own daily life? This is again 1997. 90% said no problem or small problem in my own daily life. In fact, more black kids than white kids said failure to take advantage of available opportunities is a bigger problem than racism. That's 23 years ago. That's before the election of Obama and re-election of Obama. Speaking of whom, when he was senator, he gave a speech at a historically black college. And he talked about the amount of racism in America. And he said, the Moses generation, referring to the generation of MLK, has gotten us 90% of the way there. We have, his generation, he called it the Joshua generation, have an additional 10% to go. I thought that was a pretty fair reflection of how much racism there was. 10% to go. This is before he became president. Now fast forward, racism, institutional racism, systemic racism, structural racism, use your favorite term. How do we go from 90% of the way there to racism now is pernicious, which is what Eric Holder said? What happened? What happened is they are trying to make you think like victims. So you pull that lever 95% for one particular party.
Yeah.
Hard work wins. Candace gave me 15 minutes, so I don't want to go over. Quick